Everybody, and welcome back to more political chatter. In this video, we will be talking about a 2024 election matchup between Donald Trump and Marianne Williamson. Now, on Saturday, Marianne Williamson, a author and spiritual leader, announced her candidacy for president in 2024 in the Democratic primary. She had run in 2020. She was after one of the debates she participated in, she was the most looked up candidate, like the most candidate who got attention, just from people Googling her after the debate. But she did not receive much media coverage. She is very much an outsider, not really affiliated with the establishment. And she does run campaigns against the establishment, not, for the establishment, not like a Joe Biden campaign. So she is running again against Joe Biden in the primary. I think that she will be his only challenger. After this, I don't really see Nina Turner getting in the race. Of course, it is still a possibility, but I would say that it is unlikely. And Donald Trump, of course, is on track to win the nomination, but very unlikely scenario. Obviously, I want to do more election scenarios between the announced candidates, so we could have, I did Nikki Haley, but we could do Vivek Ramaswamy, and then even Perry Johnson, Corey Stapleton, those guys who aren't receiving much attention, but they would still be fun to do. So let's get started. So as you guys know, well, first of all, I want to say that this would be an extremely interesting election. Okay, this one would really be like no other, because Marianne Williamson is an extremely different candidate and exciting candidate. She's progressive, as you all know, very an outsider and all that. And Donald Trump, as an outsider in 2016, he shocked us all, and even though the odds were against his favor. So it'll be exciting to see what Marianne Williamson could do in the primary, and if she somehow wins, then the general election. So California, Oregon, Washington, I think would all be safe. Very progressive states. Hawaii. D.C., Maryland, because of just how partisan they are. I think that New York would stay a safe Democratic state. I think that Connecticut would also. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine's 1st District. I think that Colorado would become a safe state on the presidential level for the first time in I don't know how long for the Democrats, but traditionally that one is a bit closer. Just in 2016, it was decided by 5 points for Hillary Clinton, but in 2024, first of all, it is shifting to the left very much, and I think that Marianne Williamson is a perfect candidate for Colorado because of how progressive she is. I think that she would win Colorado quite easily. Now, moving on to Donald Trump. His safe states are Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. At large, Nebraska's 1st and Nebraska's 3rd. Oklahoma. I think that Kansas would go back to being a safe state. It was likely in 2020. Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, and Indiana would both stay. Kentucky and Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and West Virginia would all stay safe for the Trump campaign. This would be it. Now let's move into likely states. So these states, first of all, safe states are states that will be decided by more than 15%. Safe states are states that, likely states will be states that will be decided by 5 to 15%. So let's get started with Marianne Williamson. So likely states. Virginia is one. This would be on the lower side of the 5 to 15%, but it is a very establishment state for the Democrats. The establishment really controls, the party here in Virginia. Looking at all their candidates, they are pretty closely aligned with the establishment, not so many outsiders. So I don't think that she would do well in the primary here, but in the general election, if she were to win the nationwide primary and become the nominee, Virginia has shifted to the left a bit since Trump became president, and they are really not fans of Donald Trump. Virginia would be a likely Marianne state. Delaware and New Jersey are two very Democratic states, but I don't see Marianne Williamson taking them by quite a safe margin in 2024. I think that it would be a likely margin. Maine at large would be pretty close to being safe. I think that Marianne Williamson is a great candidate for Maine, and we will get to Maine's 2nd district, and you will see just how powerful I think she will be. Going to New Hampshire, New Hampshire voters are very independent minded. They are willing to vote for outsiders, unlike a lot of states, even though it is a Democratic state. Especially, she brings a lot of attention to the fentanyl crisis, which has really taken a toll on New Hampshire, and that is why a lot of Republicans can win in New Hampshire, even though New Hampshire voters are more left leaning. Moving on, Illinois, like Delaware and New Jersey, very Democratic states, but it won't quite be safe. It is shifting to the right just a bit. And then New Mexico would be pretty solidly in her margin, but again, not quite a safe state. And that will be it. So, not really any more surprises. Now let's go to Donald Trump's likely states. Ohio, I think, is sticking with Trump by a likely margin. I don't see this one going anywhere. He really has turned Ohio so partisan, and, he barely shifted to the left from 2016 to 2020. So I think Trump has Ohio on lockdown. If we're talking about different Republican candidates, I think that in a presidential election, Ohio could become competitive once again, but Trump's big victory in Ohio in 2020 really showed that he is popular in Ohio, and J.D. Vance's victory in the Senate election in 2022 said that too. South Carolina, almost safe, but not quite, as you all know. Florida will shift a few points to the right. This one will be called pretty early on election night. Ron DeSantis won by such a big margin. I know it won't be that large of a margin, but voters are just as partisan on the Senate in the Senate elections than they are in the presidential election. And Marco Rubio in 2022 won here by like 16%, also a safe margin. So Trump won by 3 in 2020, so it won't quite be a lean margin or safe, but so I think that Florida would stay. Sorry about that. That Florida would stay with Donald Trump. Texas would also stay. It really takes something big for Texas to go blue. It's really shifting to left, really shifting to the Democrats. A lot like after 2018 or during 2018, but after 2020, Trump won by 5. It really stopped. Texas, I think, is staying. It was in the question a lot, like in 2024, will it flip? 2028, when Biden was still popular, but at the end of the day, I don't think that will be happening. Going over to Alaska, it will narrow down a bit, probably a 10-point win for Donald Trump, but Marianne Williamson would probably be a pretty good candidate for Alaska. I will just say that much. And that will be it for likely states for Donald Trump. So we already have a pretty interesting map. Minnesota is not likely, nor is Iowa. So you can see how I think Marianne Williamson would underperform in Minnesota, and she would overperform in Iowa. And you can, even though they're right next to each other. So as I said, very interesting election scenario, very interesting map. So let's get started with lean states. So these states will be decided by 1 to 5%. So pretty close. Let's start off with Marianne Williamson, of course. Let's see. I'll start off with an obvious Nebraska 2nd. That one is really in the Democrats' hands for years to come. Biden won it by a very good 6.6% in 2020. So I don't see that one really going anywhere. It might narrow up just a bit. Minnesota will stay with the Democrats. Hillary Clinton won by a lean margin here in 2016, but 2020, it really shifted to the left. But like Virginia, Minnesota is really a state that doesn't exactly like outsiders all that much. These, looking at their governor and senators, they're not like Bernie or Angus King type figures. They're like Chuck Schumer-like figures, Amy Klobuchar, Tim Walz, Tina Smith. So, the Minnesota Democratic Party wouldn't be crazy about Marianne Williamson, but I think that she would be able to survive and maybe, turn out enough independents to win. But that would be an interesting one. I mean, it could very well be likely for all we know. Who knows? Let's go over to Wisconsin, which I think would be like a 4 to 5 point win for Marianne Williamson here. So this one could very well be likely. I think that she would win Wisconsin, as it is like a rural progressive state. Tammy Baldwin really, she's the senator from here, and she really embodies the Wisconsin as a whole, in my opinion. I think that Marianne Williamson would be a great candidate for these rural, more progressive areas. At least, rural voters who voted in the past for Democrats, but since around the Obama era, kind of switched more Republican and conservative. And I really think that she would bring back those voters. She would turn out progressives in the metropolitan areas like Milwaukee and whatever their capital is. Oh, now this will bug me. Wisconsin, I forget. So, I think that Marianne Williamson would win Wisconsin by a very good margin. It would definitely shift to the left a whole lot. And again, this map is extremely, extremely weird. I mean, if we're looking at Donald Trump, I mean, this isn't all about Marianne Williamson. We do have to remember that Donald Trump is not all that good of a candidate in 2024 either, and that will boost Marianne Williamson in a general election. So, Michigan, I would probably put that in a lean margin also, if we're saying Wisconsin is and Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. But definitely not Pennsylvania, and we will get to Pennsylvania. Are there any more? I think that Nevada would be close, actually. Give me a second to think. Arizona's tough, but I think that Arizona goes to Marianne Williamson by a lean margin also. This is a state that flipped. That's the word I was trying to think of. Flipped in 2020, 2016 to 2020. It flipped. It become much more left-leaning, and you can see how the recent Arizona elections. You can see how Arizonans are so much more open to electing progressives. I think that Marianne Williamson would be honestly a pretty good candidate for Arizona. She is a progressive outsider. There are a lot of independents in Arizona, and I think that Marianne Williamson would win most of them. But more so, Marianne's win in Arizona is derived from Donald Trump being the Republican nominee. We cannot forget that Donald Trump is not we can't forget that he is a very unpopular guy, especially in such a moderate state like Arizona. If he, was just a bit more moderate, he would have won Arizona in 2020, but he did not. Marianne would win the state of Arizona, I believe. And I think that would be it for lean Marianne states. So now let's move on to lean Republican states. Iowa is definitely one of them, very close to being likely, as I'm sure you guessed. But Iowa, like in Wisconsin, I think that she would turn out those voters who used to vote Democratic, but in recent years have not. I think that she would return them to the Democratic Party. But yeah, returning a lot of Trump voters. That was the issue that Biden was not able to do in 2020. Okay, he might have been moderate, won a lot of independents who skipped out in 2016. But the fact of the matter is, he did not win a lot of Trump supporters, especially in rural states that Obama won, like Iowa, like Ohio. No, I know Ohio isn't rural, but whatever. You can see how Biden really failed with that, and really should have done better. But Marianne, I feel, is the candidate to do that. And Iowa, you would see. Ohio is a bit more partisan, But Iowa, I definitely think that you would see its effects. Maine second, Marianne would do great because this is such like an outsider region. Like they do not want political insiders there. Completely pro outsiders. That is why they shifted 16 points to the right. Obama won this by 8 in 2012. Trump won it by 8 in 2016. That is a 16-point shift to the right. Biden thought he had it in 2020, but no, Biden is the insider candidate, is stuck with Trump. So, because Marianne, such an outsider, would be the nominee in this scenario, I think that this one would definitely narrow up, but not enough. Donald Trump would still win Maine 2nd District. North Carolina really sticks with Donald Trump. I don't see this. I don't see Marianne turning out African American voters like Joe Biden did in 2020. I don't think there would be any special, connection with them like Biden had with serving in the Obama administration. She wouldn't be the candidate of African Americans in the primary. That would still be Joe Biden. So I don't think there would be enough energy among African Americans for Marianne to carry the state of North Carolina. That stays with Donald Trump. And that's it for lean states. And we have 3 tilt states left: Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And we still do not have a called presidential election. And I'm honestly so unsure about a lot of these states. These like final 3 states. I really don't know what to do. But yeah, we'll get to it right now. So Nevada, I think, would narrow up to a tilt margin. Biden won it by 2.4. Hillary won it by 2.4. But Hillary just put so much money and energy into it that it makes sense. Nevada, the thing is with Nevada, it's just that Marianne wouldn't be a great candidate for Nevada. I mean, you have to really turn out those minority voters who have, started to begin to shift to the right in recent years, shifted to the Republican Party. Voted Republican in such heavy numbers, and that goes for the entire Sun Belt: Florida, Texas, Nevada, New Mexico. So that would be Marianne's biggest challenge here, but there are a lot of progressive voters in Nevada, and Catherine Cortez Masto was able to hang on in the Senate election in 2022. So I think that Nevada might just elect Marianne Williamson. And that puts her at 268 electoral votes. Would you look at that? Every vote really does matter in this election. Just to make it more exciting, I will call it Georgia for Donald Trump. As I said with North Carolina, I don't think Marianne Williamson would quite have that energy needed to win, to the energy among African American voters to win these states. So Georgia, the same thing goes. I don't think that should be able to turn out those African American voters in the Atlanta and metropolitan areas like Joe Biden did or like Raphael Warnock did in 2022. I really don't. I think that Georgia will flip back to Trump. So it all comes down to Pennsylvania, and this one is really affected by what happened after the election with Donald Trump, really centering the Stop the Steal movement, saying that he won Pennsylvania. It's all about few states: Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, but Pennsylvania, with their 19 electoral votes, he said were stolen. And, January 6th, large part because Donald Trump said Pennsylvania was stolen. It was really in the center of the Stop the Steal movement, saying all these votes, all these late counted votes, 100% of them were for Joe Biden, and that's when it was called the state for Biden. So it's really stuck in Pennsylvania voters' minds. And in 2020, and January 6th, all that. But in 2022, Republicans absolutely fumbled in Pennsylvania. The Senate candidate endorsed by Donald Trump, Dr. Oz, lost by 5 in a Senate election. He underperformed Donald Trump. Doug Mastriano, the governor candidate, lost by 14%. I will repeat that. 14%. He underperformed Trump by 11 percentage points. So, Doug Mastriano, I might add, is a very extreme conservative, very far right, and endorsed by Trump in the primary. He would not have won the primary. nor Oz would have without those endorsements. So I think that Pennsylvania voters have had enough with Donald Trump. It flipped to Biden in 2020, but even after that, I think that they have had now more than enough of Donald Trump. And I think that Marianne Williamson doesn't even have to be very much of a strong candidate to win Pennsylvania. I think that really the majority of Democrats, of potential Democrats, would win Pennsylvania against Trump in 2024. A lot of these states, it's a matter of Marianne Williamson would be a great candidate or really not great of a candidate. Like Georgia, she wouldn't be that good of a candidate. Wisconsin, she would be a great candidate. But Pennsylvania really doesn't matter all that much. What matters more, in my opinion, is Donald Trump. So I think that Marianne Williamson would be elected president over Donald Trump with 287 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 251. The only state that would flip is the state of Georgia. So this is a smaller win for the Democrats than in 2020. So thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That would help me a lot. I hope you enjoyed, as I said, and I will see you all next time.